wins and 1 overtime tie. And I think just making the point, we feel like being able to stay out on the grass longer, practice outside longer, practice at a higher level will be better early on in the season. Instead of transitioning inside, which we've done for most of practice, we're going to bump practices up, be on the grass longer, and hopefully have better practices. And that's kind of the point of that.
Kliff, how much would you view this first game as a test, being that it's against the reigning NFC champs?
No question. I mean, they were 10 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl and really looked very dominant during the playoffs for much of the time, except kind of that last 10 minutes against the Chiefs when Pat did his thing and the Chiefs were rolling. So they're one of the best teams in the league, one of the most talented teams in the league, one of the best coached teams in the league. They got it rolling, and I know they have high expectations this season. And so to roll in there week 1 against them, we'll definitely find out where we're at in a hurry.
Kliff, have you announced your team captains?
Not yet. We will do that tomorrow.
Next up, please, Darren Urban, Kyle Odegaard, Cam Cox.
Kliff, after all this offseason where there seemed to be a lot of optimism, especially outside the organization, about where this offense can be and the pieces you put together, now that you've been through the whole camp, now that you're about to get to a game, are you in a good place with where it is, and do you share the optimism that it seems like a lot of people have?
I'm pretty optimistic by nature, but just watching the development of some of the guys that were here last year and how it progressed through the season last year, and then watching them in training camp and where it's at, just their understanding of the system, the nuances now are coming into play, and not just knowing where to be, but actually how to do things at a high level. It's definitely given me hope, and we know we're playing against a very good defense week 1 and are going to have our hands full. But I like what I've seen so far. Without having an off season, I think we progressed well throughout camp, and hopefully that carries over onto Sunday.
Kliff, on a personal level for Kenyon, is it nice to see him get this shot as a featured back from the start of the season when it's been so long that he hasn't had that opportunity?
No doubt. He's worked really hard. He when he got here last year, I think he knew this was kind of his chance. Either he's going to play at a high level or probably not have a ton more opportunities. And he took it and ran with it. And I'm excited to see what he can do. He has the mindset of one of the top guys. He thinks he can be that, and we're very high on what he can do in this system.
Hey, Kliff, I know the NFL has recommended that players wear face coverings on the sidelines, but I think San Francisco is one of those places where it might be mandatory. Just have you heard anything along that line, and are you planning on coaching in a mask for week 1?
I believe we're all required to do that at this point, and so yeah, I'll be in one.
Next up, Kevin Zimmerman, Richard Sines, Catherine Fitzgerald.
Hey, Kliff, just looking back at playing the 49ers the first 2 times and now preparing for the 3rd time, are there any lessons that you can take just coaching in the NFL and preparing for the same team that you kind of know pretty well by now?
Definitely. It's I like that aspect of it. You got 2 good samples that you can look back on and try to get better. And hey, what did we do well? What do we have to get better at? And what do they like to do? And so it's definitely fun to look back and then try to develop a new game plan based upon that. And everybody evolves. They'll have new looks and new things that they've come up with, and they have tremendous players and had a lot of success last year. But I definitely enjoy that aspect of having 2 good shots of them and then just seeing how we can progress our offensive game plan based on that.
Hey, Coach, as you enter, game week for week 1, how much better do you feel this time around as opposed to this time last year, heading into your first game as an NFL head coach? Just, being in the NFL for a second season, having, these guys with this system for a second year and so on.
There's definitely a comfort level there compared to last year. I mean, every day was a new experience, being my first go around, and I think Steve's done a tremendous job of bringing in some pieces this year too that we feel like fit our scheme and can have immediate impact. And so that is, as a coach, that's obviously comforting as well. But yeah, last year was a lot of learning on the fly, and I'll continue to learn this year. But I definitely feel a lot more comfortable going into week 1 than last year.
Kliff, with roster cuts in the practice squad over the weekend, what didn't work out with Hakeem Butler? And for Evan Weaver, obviously y'all brought him back for practice squad, but what do you still need to see out of him?
For Akeem, I mean, he's a talented young man. We really like Akeem. It's just one of those deals. Sometimes it's better for both sides to have a fresh start, and we felt like that was one of those instances. And he has a tremendous upside, and we still think he could be a really good player in this league. It just wasn't working here, and so we allowed him to go somewhere else. And I hope it works out for him because we did enjoy him while he was here. And as far as Evan goes, he's a tackling machine in college. I think not having an off season at that position, which is so mentally challenging for a young player, definitely hurt, but he knows what he has to work on to crack this lineup, and we like how hard he works at it, and we like how tough he is, and we'll see where that goes kind of development-wise.
Next three, Howard Balzer, Josh Weinfuss, Kyle Odegaard.
Kliff, both Kenyon and Buddha addressed this morning just what this season, who knew that we'd even get to this point? And Kenyon said you addressed that with the players this morning and what a blessing it is just to be here. You go a little bit more, whatever you feel comfortable sharing with us about what you told the team.
Yeah, I think just touching on the opportunity on Sunday, it's going to be a new experience, no fans, but I mean, that's not something that we should look at as a negative. Like I said, I'm just trying to point out all the positives, and the biggest one is being able to do this every day and come to work with everything going on in the world. Just having a great appreciation when you step in this building to be able to do what you love to do and do it at a high level and get paid to do it and be around your teammates, because it's rough in a lot of places, and we understand that. And then just enjoying that atmosphere of it's just you versus them. It's just your boys versus them, and having a lot of energy on the sideline, creating your own energy and enjoying that type of scene, because who knows when it'll happen again. When the fans are let back in, this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I think we need to embrace it and enjoy it.
Hey, Kliff, I got two questions for you. The first one is, what was the thought process to keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and how much did that have to do with the virus and possibilities with that? And the second one is, basketball and hockey are used to pick up games in quiet gyms and rinks, whatever. It doesn't seem like football does a lot of that. How do you think they're going to handle playing full speed when games matter in front of nobody?
Yeah, that question, like I touched on, I think you just have to embrace it as hey, it's us versus them, create a lot of juice on the sideline and cut it loose. When you practice that way your entire life without fans, and now it's time to go out there and do it. And anytime you're playing in the NFL, you're on national TV, you're still playing in these epic stadiums. I mean, if you can't get fired up to do that, then you're probably in the wrong business. And as far as the 3 quarterbacks go, we just feel like there's 3 quality players on this roster. Obviously, Kyler's the starter, but the other 2 we feel like can come in and perform and win games. And with everything going on, the COVID situation, you can't have enough guys like that truly can step in and operate at a high level and win games. And so that kind of, they all earned it, basically.
Kliff, you never showed too much concern about the Hopkins injury and Kenyon and all those guys, but the fact that you get to the season, it seems like everybody's practicing and you kind of have the full boat there. Is that pretty accurate about health-wise, and is that an exciting thing where you feel like, besides Alford, you have pretty much everybody raring to go?
We do. We feel fairly healthy for coming out of camp and getting into week 1. And tomorrow will be a light day and then get it rolling on Wednesday. And so we definitely feel blessed to be heading into week 1 as healthy as we are, and hopefully that continues.
We will close it out with the final 2, Omar Ruiz, Catherine Fitzgerald.
Hey, Kliff, using your kind of college coaching experience as a reference point, how often would you see a guy kind of shine when the lights were brightest, when he actually got to game competition? Obviously you can't simulate that. There's no preseason in college this year, obviously here in the NFL, no preseason. How often did that happen? And then would you expect to see some of that here once games get going next week?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be around probably the greatest guy ever at that in Johnny Manziel. I mean, he was a guy who in practice, you never knew what you were going to get, kind of. But on game day, he took over and he put on a show each and every Saturday. And so I definitely have some good experience with that, watching him go from practice to the games and light it up. But I think there's going to be some rookies that come through and cut it loose and really shine in that environment. It remains to be seen. how that plays out. But I know we're all looking forward to some of those young guys getting their opportunity on the big stage.
Kliff, there was so much less movement this weekend of players to different teams or practice squads. And I know that's not totally your job, but do you think that'll be standard for the rest of the season, just given everything else teams have to consider in bringing in new guys?
I do think that has something to do with it. I think there's just a different year, and there's a comfort level with having guys who know your processes and are already in and don't have to go through certain things to become a member of another team. And so I would expect that to remain pretty consistent throughout the season.
Coach, we appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Everyone else, thanks for joining us. We will see you Wednesday morning.
Early.
Thank you.